Welcome all of you on behalf of the Evansville Wartime Museum. When I found out how many of you were going to be here today, I put together a little prayer. Would you bow with me for a moment? Father God, as we meet in March of your year, which we call 2024, we recall an old Negro song, Amazing Grace. And on this day, we are amazed by your grace. For it was less than 10 years ago when 5 individuals with a passion so strong for showing this Evansville community how important they have been in maintaining the freedoms this country of ours provides, that they were determined to form a museum. Since then, their efforts have known no bounds. With a board of directors of more than 20, over 120 dedicated volunteers, an airport authority providing inexpensive facilities, major support from the community, and trust foundations like the Bronstein Trust, we meet today in the Evansville Wartime Museum with more than 200 people who come in order to learn more of our glorious past. We thank you, Father, for your support and your guidance in all that we do. And now we ask your blessing on this meal and on each one of us. For we ask it in your holy name. Amen. Thank you, and Mark will be up here shortly to begin the program. All that was well. Thank you.
Right there. Turn this at the front desk, right? Right over here? Cool. I was looking at the green pen, we're going to read them over. look out this time. We're castaways in the war machine. Please, please. I'll be nice. Please. Oh, here. I'm at the desk. I'm at the desk. What?
Right desk, where
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I got this guy. It's the mall. That's the name of the mall. He was here one day.
Why was there one guy that signed up for the front desk and
Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Hey, I want to thank everybody for the donation. This goes to the funds that we use for the high school and junior high and elementary schools to bring kids in here. So this goes to our educational fund. So we're not just passing that for the volunteers. All that is But anyway, thank you for your contributions. And we really appreciate it. And you know, really, when you get out to it, this is all about the next generation. What are the ones that are going to come after us? So thank you very much.
No. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, who? Layton? I was giving out 2 of them already. Layton. Well, I'm good friends with them. I'm friends with the family, I mean, the volunteers and all. Rick Woods. He's on my wheelchair. Good? All right, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for coming today. We're going to start it off in just a moment. A couple announcements and a few announcements after our pledge and national anthem. I can't thank you enough for coming. Jack Putnam said the prayer, 11:45. I know most of you had not eaten yet. So the man upstairs is watching. We'll move the prayer to 10:30. I want you to get upstairs. That's more important than it's downstairs. And downstairs it's a little hot downstairs. We got a pretty big shoe today, and we're gonna like it. We've been overbooked. We are overbooked. My wife says there's 220 that have signed up. That's our biggest yet, so people must like Miss Marsha. So we're gonna hear all about her. And I want you to start putting your thinking caps on. I've already talked to Mr. Mike Mitchell. I've talked to Sue over here. I've talked to some other people, but they're going to go on for about 30 minutes, maybe 35. Mr. Troutman and Mr. Jeff Lyons. But after they're done, your stories are very important. And I might find some chairs up here and you can come up and say a story about Marsha. I want it clean. You have a lot, everybody has something to say, but I want a lot of you to come up here and say a few things. Because we do have a lady, Erin, that she's going to do a documentary on Miss Marsha, Yockey, and when she does a documentary, anybody comes up here, and if you don't want to come up here, we'll come to your chair, and if you don't want any of that, go up and talk to Erin later. She's hired by Mr. Jeff Lyons, not Ron Rose, sorry. We got the best here today. I am sorry. That's a slip of the tongue. Yeah. We know who's the best. Quality will show. Mother Time never always tells everything. So I'm going to have Mr. Larry Hattie just got over some surgery and stuff. Larry Hattie's he's gonna start taking on the newsletter. So we want all your emails so we can send you a newsletter. We'll try to get that out once a month. And Larry's gonna be in charge of that, telling you what's going on and what's going to happen in the future here. So Larry Head, come on up, take your time. We got two people a little injured up here. So if you join us, you might get an injury.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, if you can join me in singing the national. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the thirsty air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Last two songs, third thing better, way home.
Some other things, to keep those thinking caps on, because we do expect you to say a few things. We're only limited to 30 minutes of your comments, so we've cut the main speaker short a little bit, just so we can hear some comments. So we'd like you up here telling a few-minute story. The stories have to be limited to less than 4 minutes, so you can't go on forever. I was about this hat. The hat has helped us a lot. It's for now education grants. We have students that, as Jason Holmes just said, students that can't afford to come here, and we get groups from different schools, and that's what this money supported. This money supported that lift over there, and that lift, it's finished now. It has to be approved by the safety inspectors, so it should be working in a short period of time. We don't know when, but part of that hat paid for that, probably close to the range of $5,000 for a 5-week period of time. So we thank you for that. Now, after this is over, we're going to have a dedication to the marker. It's got a cover on it out there by the guardhouse. You might not have noticed it, but it's about 5 feet tall. A lady with the Lyons Club, Cecilia Schultz, she told me 3 years ago she was going to get done tomorrow, and she just got it done. I love to hear her say that, because that's how I work, and it's usually a lot longer than I ever expect. My mind is bigger than my stomach. But anyway, this historic marker will be revealed afterwards, and you're more than welcome to look at the revealing it. That marker was in front of Whirlpool, in front of that red building, for about 60, 70 years, and somebody stole it. So she worked for the last 4 years working on the wording. The wording's on the front and the back are different, but we placed it here, which is very symbolic. We don't know what's going to happen to the Whirlpool, previously International Arts, or previously Republic Aviation Plan, but it symbolized what the Republic Aviation Plan did, and that was made in less than a year. That's Cecile Schultz, and she's a relative of mine. So we've talked about everything, except we are having what you call a eclipse
event here. We will have entertainment here. That is April 8th of 2024. And that is a Monday, Don. Is that a Monday? Monday. But Thursday before, we're going to have an expert talk about the eclipse. So at this same event, we'll have somebody to give you some science on eclipses and the history of eclipses. So you're more than welcome if you sign up with my wife. Now, my wife requires the following things. And don't go against her because you're going to lose. I've got 38 years experience, and so what she says goes. She says you can sign up at close of business today for 2 weeks from now. That's the new rules. So you can call her or email her as of 4 o'clock or as of 12:30 today for the next event. Is that correct?
And you're confirmed, because the call back is just too much with all the people, so you're confirmed if you send a text or an email. And if you put an X out there, just remember, I don't think we're going to have a crowd like this before, but if there is a topic that comes up, this is where I had to, we probably ended with, we had about 60 or 70 people we had to say no to. And so we may have one again, but.
Okay, so people that can't hear, she just said, we have to do this so we know how many lunches to order. That's why the RSVP happens. Now, because we had 64 people we turned away for this event, if I get our main speaker, Mr. Troutman and Mr. Jeff Lyons, to agree on April 18th, we will have this in the evening, and we won't charge, and we will have some food, and we will take donations that night. That's April, we'll have it from 5 to 7. Hors d'oeuvres and fruit from 5 to 6. It's for people that are working all day, can't make it. So we'll include those 64 people and probably another 150 people. April 17th, April 18th, that's a Thursday, 2024. I think I've got all the announcements, and we're getting for the really big shoot here. That was Ed Sullivan, if any of you remember. Really big shoot. And he put his arms like this. And a really big shoot. He had the Beatles, but we're not having the Beatles say we're having better than the Beatles. Okay, now these two people have worked on this a long time. Jeffrey Lyons was a worker with, for a period of time, with Marsha Yockey. Marsha Yockey was a classmate of my mother at the University of Evansville. She graduated from Boston in 1940 and then went to UV after that. I think she wanted to go to South America. Her parents said no, and she ended up with meteorological studies and was a very much an individualistic. And that didn't start once she became a news lady. My mother said she saw it in college. But she is really a genius. Lady is a genius because she could fly a plane, she could fly a helicopter, one of the first 100 women that ever flew a helicopter. Just absolutely had multiple talents and had a very social bent to herself. So Jeff Lyons and Tim Troutman worked hard on this, and I think you're going to enjoy every minute of it.
Hello, hello. Oh, it's on the air. Hey, we're working. Come on up here, Tim. I'm Jeff Lyons. I'm Tim Troutman. For Raven Tire Company. That's right. Okay. Man, that didn't go over well at all. All right. We are going to co-present the program today, and just for a little background, my research into Marsha, technically, I think, went 35 years. Is that what it is? Because I've heard a lot of things in my time at WRIP. But Tim Troutman is the real deal. He has talked to Marsha's immediate friends and people who were with her right then and there, and has put together an awesome presentation, a biographical presentation. So we decided the best way to do this is we're going to just basically trace Marsha's life. So Tim will do the part of the television, I'll handle television, and then Tim has some other things to tell you. Tim and I actually, I guess we didn't work together. You were at the National Weather Service. That's correct. At the same time, I was working at Channel 14, so we've known each other for a very long time. And I can tell you without a doubt that there isn't a better person to put this information together. He's got a real sense of detail, and he's done a lot of work. And also over here, we have Erin Gibson. You might see a camera kind of roving around. She's doing a documentary, a video documentary of Marsha, which some of you might hear. So put your makeup on today. And now, without any further ado, let's give it up for Tim Troutman.
Thank you very much. Well, those are kind words by Jeff. We have known each other a long time. Back to the days when I worked right not too far from here at the old airport terminal at the National Weather Service office in Evansville, Indiana from 89 to
Louder.
So. Louder? Okay, here we go. Yeah, it was the way I was holding the mic, I guess. So this has been really a great opportunity to do this project. Right at the end of my career with the National Weather Service in 2021, I was part of the team that was doing historical work for the National Weather Service for our historical heritage webpage, and I realized, hey, I think Marsha Yockey worked at the U.S. Weather Bureau. So I started doing some research, and sure enough, she had. And one thing led to another, and here's where we are today. So Marsha really was a colorful character. She was very smart, very kind person. Many people have told me that I've talked with, and I actually had the opportunity to meet her maybe 3 or 4 times out at the National Weather Service when I was doing my internship there, around 87, 88 time period. She was still doing the 10 o'clock news. And every night, she would come in through the week when there was any type of weather situation going on. She would roll in, chug into the weather service, just a huffing as fast as she could about 9:15. And she would say, "Hey guys, I need my weather maps." And we would print out. We had a special computer program that we used. It was called quote Marsha. And you better be ready for Marsha when she was coming to get the information. So we'd hit enter on the computer, we'd print out the charts, she would look them over for about 10 minutes. She'd say, "Hey guys, now, what do you really think? What's going to happen from your standpoint?" We'd talk a little bit back and forth, and she'd rush off to WFIE and would have maybe 5 minutes or so to get it together, maybe 10, 15, at the most, to get her map ready and everything. So she was definitely fun to work with. What I saw, and she came in several times after she retired and from TV and was a pilot. So we briefed her on pilot, air weather and aviation weather. So, I had really such a good time putting this presentation together. So, Marsha, sorry about that. So, Marsha was inducted into the Indiana Broadcasters Pioneers Hall of Fame on October 2nd.
Marsha Yockey initially worked for the U.S. Weather
This was the video.
from 1943 to 1953. In order to return to Indiana, she decided to take a job as a weathercaster at the new WFIE television station in 1953. Marsha had a 35-year TV career. She began a 3-year stint at WFIE TV from November 15, 1953 until 1956. Marsha moved over to WTVW in 1956 and then back to WFIE in 1971 until she retired in 1988. Marsha was very involved in the Evansville tri-state area, each year visiting over 100 schools, civic groups, and other organizations. Marsha was also very charity-oriented, taking part in numerous programs with Special Olympics, leading the local NBC portion of the Muscular Dystrophy Telethon, and participating with other charitable organizations in the area. She had a huge heart and donated so much of her time to the community. For her service to the area, Marsha was honored as a Kentucky Colonel. Marsha loved aviation and was a pilot from 1952 until the early 1990s. She was also the 100th female to be certified as a helicopter pilot. Marsha is remembered as an excellent weather forecaster who used her U.S. Weather Bureau training along with her fun personality, to provide the Evansville tri-state area with the best possible daily weather forecasts Sunday through Friday of each week.
Where, I got my backpack for what? I've got any pockets. So anyhow. Okay. Let's take a look here. This is Wednesday, and we're still under the influence of a very large high. It's on for one cell.
Marsha's ratings were always number one due to her irreverent personality, humor, and ability to effectively communicate the weather to the public. Marsha has been missed, but not forgotten.
So as Marsha would say, all righty, let's get started here. So here are some photos that I was able to find. I want to say special thanks to Sarah Troutman and Kay Lant and also the Newburgh Museum. They have just a treasure trove of pictures and videos, and they've been very gracious to offer this up so we can have this presentation today. But, there's Marsha at 5 years old, 6 years old. Can we all say, aww? And, of course, as Marsha grew up, this was 1930, 8 years old, and then this was basically her senior photo, 1940 at Walsey High School there. So I thought that would be neat to kind of give you a progression through the 20s through about 40. The next step in Marsha's life was working at as a chemist at the Chrysler plant, and while she was also attending college at the University of Evansville while she was studying pre-med for 3 years. And at that point, in 1943, the war effort was really taking hold at the U.S. Weather Bureau offices across the country. A lot of the male forecasters were pulled from the Weather Bureau offices, obviously, to forecast troop movements, and also, placed it in Washington, D.C. to help the War Department and so forth to figure out, what's it going to be like in certain parts of the country so that we can plan our troop movements to continue toward winning the war. So with that in play, there was advertisements in the newspaper across the U.S. saying, females, women, we need meteorologists to get trained to work and fill in at the U.S. Weather Bureau. So Marsha saw the advertisement. She decided, hey, I might want to do this. I want to do this. So she applied and was accepted and attended a 6-month course at the University of Chicago from about August of 1943 when she was hired into the Weather Bureau. And then she was, when she finished her training, began working February 1944 at the U.S. Weather Bureau office here, fortunately close to home here in Evansville. So at that time, there were, the interesting tidbit that I found in my research was at the U.S. Weather Bureau office, there were 7 employees at the time. 6 of the employees were females, and they had a male boss. So the other thing that I can say about Marsha was Marsha had the most longevity of all the females that were at the office. She was the last female to work at the U.S. Weather Bureau office in Evansville until about 1988 when a friend of mine, Sylvia Niemeyer, was hired at the National Weather Service office in Evansville about a year before I came on board full-time. So, the thing about the situation, by about 1951, while she worked through that time frame at the U.S. Weather Bureau at Evansville, she definitely gained a lot of respect in her work. She was actually the climate program leader, I guess you would call it, at the Evansville office. So back then, they really took a lot of accuracy involved in the weather records, and to have that role at the office was an important role. So at that point, and with the Korea War beginning to wind down, some of the males that had been working at the office previously, they came back to the office. So at that time, Marsha was transferred to Grand Island, Nebraska. And she was there until about officially September 1953. Well, about June the 15th, the Grand Island, Nebraska office was slated to close. Well, they got a temporary reprieve from congressional action. So during that time period between June to September, it became apparent to Marsha that she was going to have a choice. Either, again, being transferred to Dodge City, Kansas. Does she want to eat her suppers at the Long Branch, or does she want to go somewhere else at that point in life? So does she want to go to Dodge City, Kansas? Nope. So at that point, and during that time period from 1952 to 53, Marsha became certified as an official pilot. She was part of the Grand Island, Nebraska Civil Air Patrol and the GI Flying Club, and really became a proficient pilot and would fly back and forth from Grand Island, Nebraska back to Evansville. And she became friends with the former congressman at the time and others, Ed Mitchell, who was with Hesmer's Foods and also was starting a brand new concept, television news and a TV station. So at that point, former Congressman Ed Mitchell, around September, from what I can tell from the newspaper articles and what I've heard from interviews, she made that decision. Do I want to stay in the U.S. Weather Bureau, where I've had 10 years of experience and only had 10 years left before she could retire? At first she said, no, I'm going to stay in the Weather Bureau. But then she started thinking about the fact, well, all my family's in Evansville. I love Evansville. I want to come back home to Evansville. And then at that point she decided, hey, I'm going to go back home. So she tried TV. Well, before I get into the part where Jeff's going to take over, for the TV portion of Marsha's career, Marsha was an eclectic personality, as we all know. She met a lot of people of all varying statures across the U.S. From this fella here, Jack Dempsey, in the early 1950s here at Evansville. She also, I saw a very interesting photo that Sarah Troutman showed me too of a photo she had with Pappy Boyington, who was the person, the officer who really at that point in the process in the late 70s led to the Baba Black Sheep show. So she always found a way to get around and meet a lot of people. So with that, I think I'm gonna move forward now and let Jeff begin his part.
All right, thanks, Tim. Can you hear me okay? I can hear me. That's pretty loud. How many of you remember getting your first television set? I can ask that in this room. And look at all the hands. Wasn't that something? How many of you was it here in Evansville? So, okay, cool. So we know, of course, historically, that Channel 25 went on the air first in October 1953. And the Fine brothers, who owned and started WFIE, they were in a mad rush. Nothing's changed, by the way. It's been that way for 70 years. It's always, one or the other. But when the Fine brothers put WFIE on the air as Channel 62, obviously they needed to field a news and weather program. And so they got a pretty stalwart news guy named Fred Rollison to come on and do the news. But they wanted weather. And as Tim told you, Ed Mitchell, who ran Hesmer's Food and was a congressman here at the time, or it might not have been in that order, it's after congressman. He wanted a gimmick, right? I mean, TV's all about, getting somebody to watch. And he knew Marsha from the National Weather Service, and he enticed her to come on the air, right? And knowing, of course, that probably there was a lot of pent-up zaniness and craziness in there that she couldn't show at the National Weather Service. The federal government's pretty buttoned down. They're not into dressing up or jumping into lakes or doing anything like that. And so Marsha, at least from what I gather, and this is just, what I think based on what I've read and heard, she was pent up, right? She wanted to express herself creatively, and she was brilliant. She wanted to do weather. What better place to do that than in a brand new medium? And so she was the first or second thing that people saw when they tuned in WFIE on that night, 1953. Anybody remember seeing Marsha the first night? Really?
No.
Yeah, I mean like the first night, like they flipped the switch, the national anthem played, and then there's Marsha. And I'm sure across the Tri-State there was this collective, what in the hell is going on? Because she was completely different. She was not going to be up there just rattling off her rip and read kind of weather. She was into it. And as Kim told you, she was fully invested. She'd go to the Weather Service, get her charts, get her briefing, talk to people, probably share a few dirty jokes, and hop in her car and drive out to the station where we had and still have a map. It's not quite life-size. It's actually that map right there. And she had ink, right, and a big magic marker, and she would whip out what we call a surface analysis there, the isobars and all that. Her map had a distinct look. It took a lot of time for her to research to put that thing together. And those of you that know Marsha know she didn't do anything slow, right? She was like that and wanted everything right now, right, 10 minutes ago. One of the big battles at the station when she would arrive was that she wanted that map clean. So when she walked in, she could pick up her marker and start drawing frantically at 10 till 10 to make it, on the air to 10:15. Occasionally they'd forget to wipe the map off. And if she went in there and found that, there would be this tirade of, words I'm not going to repeat here today, probably still hanging over the station somewhere. And so they would detain her in the lobby. They'd say, oh, Marsha, somebody brought a canary in here. Come over here, look at it. And so they're like holding her off while somebody's out there frantically wiping off the map. But you can see, she knew her weather. And that's the thing that if I had $1 for every time I heard somebody say, Marsha knew her weather, which she did, I'd be a very wealthy man right now. And typically, that phrase always caps off some crazy story. It's like, we were out to see Marsha. She beat up his truck driver in a mud wrestling match over at Hopkins County Fair. And you're like, what? But she knew her weather. And that absolved her of anything. Marsha Becker, something horrible happened, but she knew her weather. And so when I started doing the weather at Channel 14 in 1988, Marsha had just retired. And I want to make very clear, I didn't replace Marsha. No one will replace Marsha. I thought for the first 10 years, the Marsha thing will go away, and then it'll be me. It'll be all about me. And it's still Marsha, which is fine. She certainly deserves the accolades and the crowd. I mean, look, she can still draw a crowd. If it was just me, there'd be about 12 of us here. But Marsha's been gone 20-some years now and can still fill a room. So, and she knew her weather, right? That's all about Marsha. When I started at the station in 1988, I was put in her office, right? I mean, the weather office was in a place. So I had her desk. And there were still kind of long strands of gray hair and rubber bands in the drawer. And I thought, I'm not going to grow a ponytail anytime soon, so I won't need these. But the other thing that she had saved was her archive tapes. And she had saved different moments in her career on tape. And so, of course, I watched them all. She didn't want them, which was curious. And because she had saved a lot of her work, and Kate Lance, her good friend, and other friends had taken a bunch of pictures, we have a really good documentation of Marsha and can kind of piece the pieces together on what it was like to be Marsha Yockey. And anyway, because of those tapes, I was able then to look at what she was like on the air. Of course, I grew up watching her. And true confession here, in my bedroom, I had a U.S. map and I had saran wrap over it, and then I was a closet Marsha Yockey, but nobody knew that at the time. 70s were a wild time in culture. But the fact that, it was kind of full circle. Marsha worked 35 years in the market. I've worked 35 years in the market. We pretty much, our crossover point was at WFIE. We worked a little bit on the air together for events, never at the station, telethons and things like that. And I can attest, she was wonderful and very kind to me. But there was also another side to Marsha, which everybody always seems to want to hear about. And I'll only say that, and I'm very glad, Bob, where are you? Bob Freeman. So Bob Freeman over here was our news director at WFIE for about 11 years, 1993 to 2004. And we used to have lunches and celebrations in the studio. And the reason I mention Bob is he will tell you this is true. And I'm glad I can be fact-checked in real time here. So this is not an exaggeration. We were outside, and the corporate people had come from Greenville. So this was a big day. You know, the corporate guys that were in the suits and the slicky preacher hair and all that. And they had had meetings, and then we were going to go out and have hamburgers and hot dogs on the back lot. And they always invited Marsha back. That was just common practice. And the tradition, as we've learned, was that Marsha would always tell a joke at some point during this event. And they were always really, really, really off-color, horrible jokes. Remember this? I'm not going to repeat the joke, but Bob will tell you privately if you want to hear it. Well, anyway, we're sitting out there in the heat, and Marsha stood up on the table and said, "I got a joke for everybody." And so, of course, everybody was kind of like, "Whoa, it's going to go off." And so somebody said, "What's the joke, Marsha?" She told the raunchiest joke, which I will not repeat here. But these corporate people were here from Greenville. They're like, "What is going on here in Evansville?" So she told this joke, and then there was a deadly silence over Appomattox. It was like, "Whoa." And so anyway, we went on with the day. And a few people kind of walked out red-faced, mainly the women and the corporate people. That afternoon, over the copy machine, they used to post memos. Back then, we didn't have email. There was a little memo from the manager of the station, and it said, "To those concerned from the manager, it was wonderful to have our corporate guests here today, and we all enjoyed seeing one another, and we might have heard some things that we don't need to repeat to anybody at any time. And we're just going to leave it like that." You remember that? Oh, help me out here, Bob. Bob's going to make me sweat. Very true. But she knew her weather. And we all love Marsha. And the reason we loved her was because she really defined what this job is and can be in the very best of things. You help people, you alert people, keep them safe when there's bad weather, and you get out in that community and you meet people, and it's wonderful. And so I'm so glad that she kind of made that the norm at Channel 14, that you could have fun and that you could do the weather and be taken seriously both ways. And she really, there's only going to be one Marsha, but she made it possible then for me to come and, in my belief, to stay there as long as I have, simply because, sort of in her mold, I wouldn't say I didn't copy Marsha, but I used her career as a cue. And the cue is you get involved in the community and you care, and that's what she really did. In about 2000, Marsha was inducted into the AP Hall of Fame in Indiana. And it was my honor to put together a very short video of her career, which is what we're going to show here in just a second. And in the video, you're going to hear David James and Mike Blake talk about working with Marsha Yockey, which gave them their gray hair, I'm sure, and might have given me mine had I been in their position. So this is the entry that we did for Marsha Yockey's AP induction in 2000. And I want to thank you all for your attention. You'll see some more pictures in there that maybe you haven't seen in Tim's presentation. And I need to wrap us up here. He's got one more funny thing to tell you.
Workers scrambled to put WFIE Channel 62 on the air as the city's first TV station. A local advertiser picks Marsha Yockey, a meteorologist with the local weather bureau, to host the weather segment and sell his products. Her unique style and wacky personality put her on the map almost overnight.
For so many years, she was the star of the local news. And I don't care anybody says, people turn on the week to watch Marsha, and the forecast from Marsha, and see what she would do next. What would she do later? How far would she push that?
She was sincere and said there of unpredictability. You never knew quite what was going to say. And, go back to the 50s, on to the 60s and 70s, that made for very good live TV, and even on to the 80s in the twilight of the period.
Marsha was a regular at local parades and events. Her flair for entertainment took her weathercast to hundreds of locations, even to the moon on July 20th, 1969. 69.
This is Mission Control reporting. We are now receiving television pictures from the Sea of Crises, and here is Marsha with the weather, brought to you by Holland Dairy. Stand by there.
Roger.
Roger, we can see television pictures fine now, coming down the ladder. Check your CRM 114. Your parameter should be reading 4 by 5.
Roger.
This is not Roger, this is Andy.
Roger, Andy, baby. Free is at 1 o'clock in Boonville for 4-H County Fair. I gotta ride a horse naked.
One of my great visions of Marsha is over in Owensboro at the Sports Center, I believe. Roscoe Tanner, famous tennis pro, was in town for an exhibition, and they invited me and Marsha over there to hit a few balls with. Then all of a sudden, Marsha was the darkened area of the arena with this huge tennis racket. Catch a whale on this thing, fishing net. And she runs out onto the court to try to hit one of the serves with that, and then chases Roscoe Tanner around the court with this giant tennis racket. Bizarre thing.
She really didn't know how to say no. If a school called her or a function, she'd go to, fashion shows, or she'd go to charity events and go here and there. And she was a social animal. I mean, she loved people. I think the fact that they got to know her and she was approachable, that just, and then you combine it with 35 years on the tube, she was literally a legend.
In November of 1987, after 35 years as Evansville's top weather forecaster, Marsha Yockey retired from the 10 p.m. newscast on WFIE.
Marsha has been #1 at 10 o'clock, get this folks, for 35 years in local television. #1, very few people in the profession can boast that.
She still worked as the midday weathercaster for another 6 months, and after that continued to appear at local events and even on the weather for a tornado relief telethon in 1990. Even though she has been off television for nearly 12 years, her legacy of caring, knowledge, and zaniness will long be remembered and appreciated.
And everybody just loves Marsha, and there'll never be another one like her.
January 24th, 1978 weathercast. Yeah, this is the January 24th, 1978 weather segment. And that was where she was talking about the previous winter storm that we had on January 16th, 1978. Where we had almost a foot of snow here in Evansville, 16 inches in Henderson County, where I grew up. So Marsha's broadcast on that Sunday night on January the 15th, 1978, I remember when she came out, she said, first thing out, kids, you're not going to have school tomorrow. Don't even worry about getting up. I was 10 years old. I was like, yay! Don't have to worry about that, So then I watched her weathercast. And then I'm thinking, hey, I'm gonna watch WHT's weathercast to see what they're gonna say. And at that point, Jerry Talbert got on there to do the weather. He said, we might have some snow flurries tomorrow, guys in the mid-30s. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I can't wait to see how this turns out. So, I go to sleep excited and wake. I don't wake up until I look at the clock. It's like 8:30 in the morning, and then I look at the window and it's really bright, and I'm thinking, hey, I wonder if we got snow. Open the curtain, I'm like, golly, we've got almost a foot of snow already. And I'm like, Marsha's right, So that day really got me, and that event really got me interested in meteorology. Not the severe weather part, the snow part, and Marsha Yockey's broadcast got me interested in being a meteorologist. And that's what I went through the whole process through college. Had an opportunity to either do TV weather at WDKO TV in Bowling Green or work for the National Weather Service. So I was like, well, let's see here. Uncertain career, or do I stay at home? I think I'll stay at home. So at least I was able to stay home for about 5 years. And, Marsha was a big influence in that direction. I loved her nightly weathercast. She was, you just never knew what you were going to get, which was pure entertainment. And that's what I think drove everybody to watching her. And she was such a personable person and very, like you said, a very smart individual. So, I pulled this information. This was the snowfall totals for Marsha's correct, weather segment on that Sunday night on January 15th, 1978. Boy, she really hit that forecast on the nail. I mean, completely correct.
She knew her weather.
Yes, she did. And as we wrap up, I just want to give a special thanks to everyone that's been involved in the project. I'll bring that back up real quick, just a second. Sarah Troutman, Kay Lant, Newburgh Historical Society Museum. All those photos were courtesy of those folks. David James gave us some good information that I used also. And of course, Jeff Lyons, without a doubt. Thank you so much for taking the call and coming with me today to do the presentation. I Shanghaied in today. I really appreciate it. Thanks to so many others who may have participated that I left out in the project. So, there's going to be the Marsha Weather Bureau segment is going to be on the web eventually. They're going through the final editing process, and that's going to be up on the web too. So she was one of the first Weather Bureau ladies and one of the first TV weather broadcasters that's female. So that was really significant and really made a difference in the area. So with this, I guess we're going to turn it over now to the audience. And go ahead, Mark, take it over.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want Jeff Lyons and Tim to come up here on stage, please. And Susie, come on up here. Susan Cates is going to come up here. We've got 3 chairs. Jeff, you're going to be over here, and Tim over here. Susie's going to be right here. Now other people are going to come up here in just a little while. Don't be shy. Help her up here. I want 3 chairs, all of us sitting, except me. Now Susie flew with Marsha, so she's going to tell a few stories about flying with Marsha. And Susie's husband also fixed and worked on all of Marsha's planes, and I think were owned by Susie's husband. So Susie's going to tell some of these stories. Susie, why don't you sit right here, and they're going to get your microphone down. And then you can generate some questions. We'll have some other microphones circulating around. You just have to raise your hand. Mr. Mitchell, I don't want you leaving. You got to come up and sit in the front row. Okay. Mr. Mitchell might have been that Mitchell, but he also knows a lot of stories. And if he's exiting, stop the door. Right there. Here. Over here. Okay. All right, now Susie, hers working. Check, see if hers working. Can you hear her? Linda Sue Cates, and we're going to, okay, Marsha, call her Susie, so I'm okay. Bring that microphone up here. I want our microphone up here, please, on her. Turn it on. No, we're going to use this other one, please. Okay, now just a preface, Susie, while he's getting this ready, you talk into here. Tell us a story when you flew with Marsha, please.
Okay, we flew in the women's air race on October the 15th in a fleet biplane. And Marsha came to me. My husband restored that plane. She came to me early about she wanted to do that, and she wanted me to fly with her. And I said, gee, Marsha, I just became pregnant. And she goes, well, go ask your doctor if it'll be okay. So I went to my doctor, Dr. Davison, And I said, you know, I'm going to do this, or I'm told to ask you this question. And he said, well, as long as she doesn't crash the plane. So, a couple days later, Marsha said, did you go and did you ask? And I said, yes. Well, what did he say? And I said, well, he said as long as you don't crash the plane, it's okay. And she goes, oh. And with that, she practiced daily over in Henderson at the airport, flying and landing the plane. And when we did the race, it was, I didn't know that she landed. She did a very good job. And the day of the race was a very cloudy, cold day. And I don't think I've been so cold in my life.
You flew from what 3 cities?
Well, wish I could tell you that, I don't know. When you fly in that type of air race, it's from point to point, and it has to be a certain amount of time, and the fleet guide plane only flew 85 miles an hour, so we were the first to take off and the last to land.
And did they talk to the person that won the race, or they talked to Marsha, and what did people think about that?
Well, the women that put on this air race were not too happy to have Marsha get all of the notoriety. And she was the first speaker that night at their banquet and the last speaker. We were not very well accepted by those women. I'm sorry to say that they took that flow, but they did. But anyhow, that was the race.
Okay, tell us, Susie, I'll call you Susie anyway. Tell us something about your husband, and he flew with her a lot more than you did, and how he fixed her planes, and a couple experiences he had that he reflected with you.
Okay, every year.
Let's get this thing working. I'm not trying to be fresh.
Sure.
Can you hear me now?
We're going to have to put up a memo about this program. PG-13, right?
All right. Every year, there's, I'm sure since there's a lot of people here that fly, you know about Oshkosh. And every year, Marsha and my husband and friends would fly up to Oshkosh, and they were all flying without radios. So they flew the railroad tracks and used their sectionals. And during that period of time, I got to run the business for a week while they were up there. And sometimes they didn't return when they were going to because of bad weather. But if you've never been to Oshkosh, you need to do that once in your lifetime for sure. And they camped out right there on the airport. Their wives and friends would drive up with all of the camping that was needed. And one year I flew up with my husband, camping out. We had a horrible time getting there. We were involved in a very bad rainstorm, and we landed in Lake Fond du Lac with about 100 other people. And in the attempt to land, the rain was just coming straight across. My husband ground looped the plane, but he was able to taxi. So we taxied and you set out the storm. And in order to, once the storm was over, everybody got in their planes and took off to fly back into Oshkosh. And by the time we got there, they closed the airport. So then we had to go back to Lake Fond du Lac, and we landed. And I said to my husband, I'll tell you what, I'll hike up there, I'll take a bus, or let's rent a car. And we were able to rent the last car. And so we drove up there because I had it. And so we spent the week, wonderful week, camping out. And the last night there was a weather briefing, and I went over to the weather briefing, and the weather returning was going to be really bad. From there, I went to a payphone and called the airlines, and I got a first-class ticket home. I could drive the car back, drop it off, and go into the Milwaukee airport and fly home. But I only had bib overalls, but I did not give a dirt. I just do the, and it took them 2 weeks to get home from that time. So that's, you know, we lived in a duplex on 701 Hoosier. It's on the corner of Belmead and Hoosier. And right up from our house is a church. And one day, Marsha came and knocked on my door, and she goes, "Susie, let's go for a ride." And she had landed the helicopter in the church parking lot. So we went off for a ride. Yeah. I can tell you many other times. I mean, Marsha was continually getting me in trouble. We had a wonderful time, and she was a very uninhibited woman. Okay?
You two have any questions for Susie? And Susie, anything, your husband fixed the planes, they were his planes that she flew, I believe. She flew his planes and he kept them up, and he did a ton of things for her.
Right. My husband loved to restore antique airplanes, so we had many different planes during our lifetime. So he wasn't a great lover of flying them, but he loved to restore them. So I'm sure some of you, there may be someone here that knew him. I don't know. I haven't seen you, but
Jeff or Tim, you have questions, or any of the audience have questions for Susie? And I need somebody on deck. On deck, here comes Ricky.
He's coming up.
Ricky's coming up, and he'll ask a question. I'll give you a microphone, Ricky. Okay, Ricky.
Yeah, you think she's in heaven still drawing on that board about the weather?
most likely. Another thing that she did is I had twins, by the way. She used to come over, and when there would be a storm, she would come and sit on our porch and get my boys and explain to them every lightning storm and so forth. So they never were afraid of weather. And she did a lot of things with the boys. Some of her shows, she would have them included in them, and other kids. So she was a wonderful person.
There's a story that is often told at the station. When I was doing the 70th anniversary show, David James told this story, and you might have heard it if you saw that show, but if you haven't, so this was in the mid-70s, about 74, 73, and they wanted to do a promo at King Tut Territory, which was now defunct, but it was this thing down at Eddyville. It was like a western village. And so they had Marsha fly the entire news team. So that's how much trust they had in Marsha. They had their top weather person, their top news person, and two others on the air, stuck them in an airplane. David said she navigated by water towers going down. So she was like, is that cool? Oh, we need to go a little bit to the left, honey. And they go over, and they got to the airport and landed, and she overshot the runway just a tad. And so they all had to get out, and not only had they trusted her to fly them, then they all had to lift up the plane. They put it back on the runway. Yeah. And then go shoot the promo, and then get back, read the water towers, and come back into the 6 o'clock news. So nothing changed.
Yeah, that is true. I flew with her and my husband and another friend, and sometimes they would have a rather rough landing, and they would all deny having flown or landed the plane. I finally got so aggravated with all of them, I took flying lessons. And I didn't tell them, I just took the flying lessons, and this one day, the man that was teaching me to fly, he goes, well, next week when you come, you will solo. And I went home and I thought about that, and I never went back. I did not want to solo, and unbeknownst to me, my little brother was taking flying lessons at the same time. And we were talking one day on the phone, and he told me about it, and he soloed. And I said, what happened when you soloed? And he goes, well, I turned the plane upside down. And I said, I knew it. I never wanted to do it. So,
Thank you. There's nobody else standing up, but I would see if I can get one lady to say a few things. Mike Mitchell, you would come up here or not? Can you come up and sit in Susie's place? And I'm going to say a few things while you walk up here. Take your time. This is a local attorney, Mike Mitchell, and he knows a heck of a lot. He's a farmer attorney. I don't think he's practicing right now, so if you got a divorce or a lawsuit, you probably But I know this lady won't want me to talk about her, but if you know of Kay Lant was the historian of Newburgh. We have lost a treasure. They're going right up here, and we'll get another chair up here. Get another chair up, Jason. We'll let all three of them form sit there. But Kay Lant is number one historian. She lived, I think, near Marsha, and so Sarah Troutman's here, and she says she won't talk, but she flew with Marsha as well. And if you want to get up there and say anything, you're more than welcome, because you have probably as much knowledge as anybody about Marsha Yockey living near her and your mother hanging around with her stuff. That's a no, I guess. All right, I can ask you specific questions. One, now, we hooked Mr. Mitchell up. He's in Marine Corps, retired only 36 years. So we're going to serve him nails next time instead of his sandwiches. They like to eat nails. Don't take a fight with him, he'll probably beat you. Now, Mr. Mitchell, I want two stories from you, and you can ask questions to Mr. Lyons or Mr. Troutman or Susie. Okay, did it work?
Can you hear me?
Okay, shoot.
Two stories. My father went to the Fine Brothers who owned WFIE. And he said, I want to do a weather show, and I want it on at 10 o'clock preceding the news. So they haggled that out. And then he said, and I'm going to hire a meteorologist called Marsha Yockey to do the weather. Well, the Fine Brothers went crazy. They said, you can't do that. You need to hire a good-looking, big blonde, like all the other big stations, and they can memorize the weather. Well, Dad held his ground and hired Marsha. The Fine Brothers said, your ratings will tank within 2 months. Dad laughed all the way to the bank. Marsha was an employee of Hesper's, so Dad could take advantage and deduct her salary. The other short story is that there was a major corporation having a retreat in Evansville at the Executive Inn. And it was a Friday night, and the board of directors were doing whatever they were doing. At 10:15, the chairman of the board got up and said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. They said, where the hell are you going? He said, I'm going upstairs to watch that crazy weather. That's it.
Okay, a lot of you know Marsha. Anybody? We got microphones everywhere. Okay, bring it over to him, Don. There's somebody raise their hand over there. You have to stand up. You have to go up in the front. Don't come up. Come over here. Go over there. No, I don't want him there. I want him up here. Up. You gotta get the cameras on him. And you gotta say your first name and last name, and then a couple and or you're from Newburgh or Evans or whatever. Okay, now turn around and talk to the crowd. Thank you.
Is this on?
No, put it like this. Okay, turn it right in front of your mouth. Right here, like this. Put it right there.
All right. Okay. This story comes from me from two fellow co-workers that it happened to. And it's obviously about Marsha. They were hot air balloonists. And they were really enthused with this hot air stuff. So they took Marsha up one day. Went out, they got out, they tell me they were in the proximity of the river, over the river, and they hit a pond. They couldn't go forward, they couldn't go backwards, they were stalled up there in the air. Well now folks, I just want you to think for 1 minute what it would be like to be in a little basket with Marsha Yockey for over an hour, with her talking the whole time. That is the story, and it was told to me as the truth, and I believe it. But they said it was just unbelievable. She never shut up.
I have a question for Mr. Mitchell while we're getting the next question out. Now, you can answer this. I'm sure the statute of limitations has run out. So Marsha was at 14 for the first 3 years. She left in 56 because allegedly they changed her music and she got mad and she quit and immediately went to Channel 7. But there must have been a little more to it than that because her sponsor at Channel 7 was Holland Dairy. But then she came back and was with Hesmer's in 71 or 2 when she came back over. Are you at liberty to talk about that? Because you said she worked for Hesmer's. I thought that was really interesting.
I don't know what caused that hiatus. George forgot Dan's production guy, came on one night and had a film that he wanted to show. And Marsha previewed the film, took it over the hill and dropped it down.
That's the story I've heard, that she threw it down the hill. She hated it, right? Okay.
So George had a little, like a Tonka truck with a Hesmer's logo on it. So he got drunk. So the commercial was him playing with this Tonka truck. She was something else. But I don't know what caused her to flip-flop.
Well, from what I read in the newspapers of that time, trying to research that gap, and she was kind of coy about it because she interviewed with Chet Behrman, Uncle Dudley, when she came back, and it just kind of breezed over it. Well, of course I was gone for a while, but now I'm back, and it's like, wait a minute, they like spliced the film. But I'd always heard that, they changed something and didn't run it by her first, and she blew up. But then I'd also heard that they were offering her a lot more money over Channel 7 because her ratings were so good on 14. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, we have another guy going to talk about bringing a microphone in, but I'm bringing a young lady up here with me. Her name's Joanne on her trip here.
Joni Ubler.
Joni Ubler. Her maiden name was Sassy. And her brother, Joe, dated Marsha for about 5 years. He was big on the news station, and they were news partners at, I guess, WFIE. And so she's going to tell a couple of stories. Her name's Joni Ubler, and she's born in 34. My wife said I'm not allowed to say a person's age, so I didn't say the age. But I think you know some arithmetic. Okay, I'm going to hold her so we stay up in the air. So she probably holds me when I'm going over this way, Joni, over this way. Okay, you do the talking, I'll do the walking. Right there.
Right there, okay. Hi, everybody. My twin brother, Joe Sassy, worked at the station, met Marsha, and they started dating. And they dated for quite a few years, and then she wanted to get married. But he turned her down because she didn't want children. But yet, my kids loved her. She was over the house a lot. She'd go in on the living room floor and sit down and play games and do puzzles. She really was a wonderful person. But that's about it, I guess.
Well, and Joe's a fish eater too, and she didn't want to become a fish eater. Isn't that true? Okay, she's going to be converted then. Anything else you remember? Was she always smiling?
All the time. My children loved her and she loved them. And the thing they loved to do is get down on the living room floor and play games. Things like that.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, this young gentleman's coming up to say a couple things. I don't know his birthday.
I'm Dick Kissel, and I was on the fire department. And Marsha had a hobby, or actually one of her traits, that on the day before Memorial Day, at the end of her program, she would jump in the water, in the swimming pool there. I was on duty today, and she called me up. She said, "Hey, Dick, I've got a problem." "What's the matter, Marsha?" "Well, the swimming pool is empty. I can't help the thing with empty." So she said, "I want you to come on over and fill it up." "Marsha, we don't do that. We don't do that." "Oh, come on, Dick. I know Frank McDonald. He won't say no." And after a while, I said, "Okay, Marsha, I'll have a crew come over there and fill the swimming pool. 50,000 gallon water." So I said, "Marsha, you cannot say my name. I can't go credit for this." "Okay." Right in the middle of the program, she says, "Hey, Pete, say thanks to Dick Kissel." I knew the next day the first phone call I was going to get was from Frank McDonald.
Testing. Okay, any more in the back? Anybody back? Oh, here we got one. Okay. This is Brian Brattle, born in 1951.
Well, I tell y'all, so was he. My mom worked at Chrysler with Marsha and Yockey. And they worked late one evening, very late. This was back when the gates used to be locked up at Oak Hill Cemetery. Well, they had a friend by the name of Jeannie, and I won't say her last name, I do remember it, but I won't say it. But they cut across Oak Hill Cemetery to go to Jeannie's house. They went through the Columbia Street gate and didn't realize that it got locked behind them. The Willow Street gate was already locked. So it was very dark, and they were going across there, and they found the gate locked. They had to try to figure out how somewhere to get out of there. So they decided they would start climbing the wall to get over there. And about this time, a great horned owl started hooting. Marsha had some very colorful language. She was telling the owl and what they were going to do to get out. They did finally get out, and Marsha was telling everybody how this owl, we'll leave the description out, how this owl helped them get the incentive to go across that cancer. This was Marsha. She was a crazy one. And she always laughed about it, and she told people about it later on in life. I remember seeing her out at Eastland Mall one time. She still told that story.
Here we go. Name.
Kathy Stewart, born in 1955. And I grew up with watching Marsha Yockey, as many folks did. And I was a member of the White River Saddle Club with my father, who, by the way, was a World War II veteran. And we had weekly trail rides in and around Petersburg. And one weekend we had like a roundup at the Pike State Forest. And Marsha came to the Saturday night party. She was riding a horse, and for me, it was meeting a celebrity. And I will never forget meeting the celebrity of Marsha Yockey. And I remember her, she of course engaged with everybody there. Her love of people and her sense of community spirit has always just amazed me and stayed with me. And I'll just never forget that moment.
Thank you, and that's exactly what Jeff Lyons is doing. He does a ton for ARC. He's done so much philanthropy work in Evansville that he's following Marsha's trail. I know this young lady won't like me, but Kay Lant is her mother, and I wanted just to say a couple things about Kay Lant, what Kay Lant would say today. Okay. It says Sarah Troutman, age, she's born in 1995.
Well, I knew Marsha my entire life, and she would come to our house for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and she was like family. She never owned a washer or a dryer. I can tell you that because every week we would take her laundry when I was a little girl to her parents' house, and her mom would do her laundry and dry it. And she loved to have fun, there's no question about that, but she took the weather very seriously. And there was no messing around before the weather forecast. That was a big deal. Afterwards, you know, she did what she wanted to do, but she was very dedicated to what she did. And she was like a mom to me almost. She was there, she came over every week for dinner, and I miss her. And my mom was kind of a crazy person, so they got along quite well. That's very true. So anyway.
Did you ever fly with her?
Oh, absolutely. She landed a helicopter in our backyard. She did, and the neighbor kids wanted to go too. And she said, no, you have to have a note from your mom and dad. So they took off to get the notes from their moms and dads, and we took off. Yes, and then we would fly up to, what is it, I guess French Lick up there, and have lunch, and then fly back. But she was just a really wonderful person, really was.
Sarah provided a lot of pictures for Tim Troutman, and a lot of this stuff came from her because she knew her for so long. Any other questions in the crowd? Any other people want to say something? Just you've done an excellent job of listening and participating. We can't thank you enough. And we got one back here. Okay. Sorry to extend this, but this is as important as our talk because we're getting.
I'll make this quick. My name's Dan Grimm. I knew her a little differently as my grandparents lived in this huge house in Newburgh, and they actually cut the house in half, and that's where Marsha lived for about 30 years. So I used to see her quite often. And talking about the helicopter, a little bit more on her compassionate side, she was so excited when she got her helicopter ratings. I don't know if you remember, but she actually had a helicopter sound and stuff to start her weather broadcast. And she was slated to take Santa Claus into North Park in a helicopter, and she was unable to do that, and so she asked a good friend of hers. She always thought he was the epitome of pilot. She knew that he was a much better pilot. Well, for some that may not remember, the helicopter caught some power lines and crashed in front of a bunch of kids with Santa Claus on board, and she never got over that. And from that point on, her entry into the weather was up in my beautiful balloon, and she never did do the helicopter again.
Thank you. Her mother and dad lived at 1713 Barrett Park. That's right near Bossy High School, near Memorial High School. So that's where she grew up. They died at age 90, I believe. And this young lady's brother cut their grass. The lady that's a patriot, carrying a patriot hat there. Anything else? Okay, I can't thank you enough again, and in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we've got a lady named Barbara Cole that's going to talk. She's going to be probably the she's been the veteran of the year here. She's going to talk about women veterans. We're going to have a 40 and 8 presentation of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Remember, half our soldiers were unknown in all our wars out of 1.2 million. And right after this, you go out front if you want to. We're going to have a dedication of that sign. Love to have you out there this afternoon right after this is over. Thank you. Come back in 2 weeks.